In 1950, San Jose, California was the 57th largest city in America, smaller than Akron, smaller than Fort Worth. Its population was 95,000, and most of those people made their living from fruit, growing it, picking it, canning it, shipping it. By 2000, San Jose had climbed to 11th, bigger than San Francisco, bigger than Detroit, bigger than Boston, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville. Nearly 900,000 people. No American city has ever jumped that many places in that short a time, and almost no one outside of California can tell you how it happened or what it cost. Ask most Americans to picture San Jose and they'll get nothing. No skyline, no landmark, no postcard. This is a city with more people than San Francisco, and it might be the least imagined major city in the country. That blankness is not an accident. It's the residue of how the city was built, or more precisely, of what was demolished to build it. But to understand the demolition, you have to understand what was there first. And what was there first was, by nearly every account, extraordinary. For a few weeks every spring, starting in late February and running into March, the entire floor of the Santa Clara Valley erupted in blossoms. Apricot blossoms, cherry blossoms, plum and pear and prune blossoms, white and pale pink, acre after acre, horizon to horizon, so thick the valley looked like it had been buried in snow. People drove from San Francisco just to see it. There was an annual Blossom Festival that drew 20,000 visitors in its peak years. The valley had a nickname, one of those names so perfectly suited you suspect it was invented by a publicist, but which apparently arose on its own: the Valley of Heart's Delight. The transformation from cattle ranching to fruit had started after the Civil War, when a Frenchman named Louis Pellier, who had come to California for gold and found apples selling for $1 apiece in San Francisco, the equivalent of about $40 today, decided fruit was a surer fortune than mining. Pellier imported cuttings of French prune plum from his home region of Agen and grafted them onto local rootstock. They flourished. Other growers followed. By the time the Transcontinental Railroad was completed in 1868, the valley was shipping fruit east, and the canning industry took root. Dr. James M. Dawson founded the first commercial cannery in San Jose in 1871. By 1919, nearly 100,000 acres of the Santa Clara Valley were planted in fruit trees. 7.5 million prune trees alone. Santa Clara County was producing 75% of all the prunes and apricots grown in the state of California. By the late 1930s, San Jose was the largest canning and dried fruit packing center in the world. 18 canneries, 13 dried fruit packing houses, 12 fresh fruit and vegetable shipping firms, with a total of 39 canneries operating across the valley at its peak. The Del Monte Cannery in Midtown was the largest employer in the city. Brands you still recognize, Del Monte, Sunsweet, started here in this valley, packed in tins stamped San Jose, California. San Jose was also one of the first California cities to build the mechanical equipment used in specialized farming and processing: the pumps, the dryers, the sorters, and those machines were shipped worldwide bearing the same stamp. And this was not a new place. San Jose was old, one of the oldest settlements in the American West. On November 29, 1777, the same year the Continental Congress adopted the Stars and Stripes, a lieutenant named Jose Joaquin Moraga led 68 settlers to a spot along the Guadalupe River and founded El Pueblo de San Jose de Guadalupe. It was the first civilian settlement in all of California, not a mission, not a military outpost, but a town, established to grow grain for the Spanish presidios to the north and south. Those 68 people were farmers and soldiers, mostly mestizo and mulatto, recruited from northern Mexico. They were given land, seed, animals, and a monthly stipend of $10. Their job was to grow food and survive. And survive they did, through Spanish rule, through Mexican independence, through the Bear Flag Revolt. On July 14, 1846, Captain Thomas Fallon rode into San Jose with a small force from Santa Cruz, raised the American flag, and claimed the town without firing a shot. 3 years later, when delegates gathered in Monterey to draft California's first Constitution, they chose San Jose as the state's first capital. First settlement in California, first capital of the state. You'd expect the story to build from there, the usual arc of a western city climbing from frontier outpost to regional power. But San Jose's story veered sideways almost immediately. The first legislature convened on December 15, 1849, in a 2-story adobe building, 60 feet by 40, unfinished. San Jose was at that point mostly huts, tents, and mud. The roads flooded. The drinking water was suspect. The accommodations were so dismal that Senator Thomas Jefferson Greene reportedly ended each session with the cry, "Let's have 1,000 drinks." The legislature earned the nickname, the Legislature of 1,000 Drinks, and by 1851, the lawmakers had voted to move the capital to Vallejo. It bounced to Benicia, then to Sacramento, where it stayed. San Jose was first, and then it was forgotten. But there was one more first before the orchards took over, and it's a strange and important one. In the hills south of the Pueblo, the Ohlone people had long gathered a bright red mineral, cinnabar, and used it for body paint and trade. In 1845, a Mexican military captain named Andres Castillero tested a sample of that red rock from the walls of Mission Santa Clara, roasted it, and watched mercury vapor rise from the flame. He had found the ore body of the new Almaden quicksilver mine, the first mine of any kind in California, operational a full 3 years before James Marshall found gold at Sutter's Mill. The irony was almost too neat. The gold rush depended on mercury to extract gold from ore, and the mercury came from San Jose's hills. By some measures, the new Almaden mine produced more metallic wealth than any individual gold mine in the state. At its peak, the community around the mine housed 1,800 people and more than 700 buildings. It sold in 1864 for $1.7 million. During the Civil War, the federal government briefly attempted to seize it because mercury was so essential to extracting the gold that financed the Union's war effort. So San Jose had been the first settlement, the first capital, and the site of the first mine. 3 firsts that by rights should have made it a great city. But the gold was in the Sierra foothills, and the port was in San Francisco, and the capital moved north, and San Jose settled into what it would be for the next century, a farm town. A very good, very prosperous farm town, but a farm town. The population tells the story flatly. In 1900, San Jose had 21,000 people. By 1940, nearly 58,000. Steady, slow growth. The kind of city where families ran orchards that had been in the family for 2 or 3 generations, where children picked prunes starting at the age of 6, where virtually everyone in the valley, in one way or another, touched the fruit. Chinese and Japanese immigrants worked the orchards. Italians came at the turn of the century and brought grafting skills from their home country. Filipinos arrived in the 20th century. Mexican Americans became the dominant workforce during World War II. The labor was hard, the pay was seasonal, and the politics were rough. A major union organizing drive in the 1930s turned violent enough that a public lynching, tacitly supported by the governor, cast a shadow over the valley's wholesome reputation. But the fruit kept coming, and the cans kept shipping, and the blossoms kept appearing every spring. On February 26, 1931, in the middle of the Depression, San Jose opened the Hotel De Anza. It was 10 stories, 144 rooms, designed by architect William H. Weeks in the Art Deco style. Zigzag parapets, wrought iron balconies, a 2-story lobby with enormous wooden beams, and a wrought iron chandelier that looked like something out of a Spanish castle. The whole building cost $505,000, funded not by a single wealthy developer, but by the San Jose Community Hotel Corporation, an organization of local business leaders who sold shares to more than 200 citizens. They believed the valley deserved a first-class hotel, and they pooled their money to build one. It was named not after a financier, but after Juan Bautista de Anza, the explorer who had scouted the site for the pueblo in 1776. Eleanor Roosevelt stayed there. Jack Dempsey stayed there. Cab Calloway played in the tap room. In 1951, a painting of a woman diving, the Diving Diva, was splashed across the hotel's western wall to advertise the outdoor swimming pool. She's still there. The Hotel De Anza is one of the few buildings in downtown San Jose that survived what happened next. But to understand what happened next, you have to understand the war. World War II changed the valley's economy before anyone quite realized it. The Food Machinery Corporation, or FMC, which had started as the Bean Spray Pump Company in nearby Los Gatos in 1884 and moved to San Jose in 1903, received an order in 1941 from the War Department for 1,000 landing vehicles, tracked amphibious craft for beach assaults. It was the first major defense contract in the city's history. The Joshua Hendy Iron Works in Sunnyvale began building marine engines for Liberty ships. An IBM factory started manufacturing punch cards in San Jose in 1943. Hundreds of servicemen and defense workers, discovering the valley's climate and open land, decided to stay after the war. They bought homes with GI Bill loans on cheap orchard land, and the housing boom began. The canneries were still the dominant employer in 1950, but the seeds of a different economy had been planted, literally in the shadow of the fruit trees. In January 1952, an IBM engineer named Reynold Johnson arrived in San Jose from Endicott, New York. Johnson was a former high school science teacher from Ironwood, Michigan, who had been hired by IBM to help develop test scoring machines. Now he had a new assignment: open a small research laboratory on the West Coast, no more than 50 people. Work on technologies nobody was working on back east. Find a site, do his own recruiting, figure something out. Johnson rented space at 99 Notre Dame Street in downtown San Jose, a few blocks from the Hotel De Anza, a few blocks from the plaza where the first legislature had convened a century earlier. By July 1952, the lab was functioning. About 30 engineers, many hired after a single interview. Johnson gave them 3 principles and turned them loose. They tried rods, strips, tapes, and flat plates before settling on aluminum discs coated in iron oxide paint. Their breakthrough came on February 10, 1954, when the team successfully transferred data to and from a spinning magnetic disc. 2 years of refinement later, in September 1956, IBM announced the 305 RAMAC, Random Access Method of Accounting and Control, the first computer to use a magnetic disk drive for data storage. It weighed over a ton. It stored 5 megabytes. It leased for $3,200 a month. Before RAMAC, retrieving information from a computer could take hours. RAMAC could access data in seconds. Orders poured in from 3M, Pfizer, United Airlines, the U.S. Navy. In 1958, RAMAC was demonstrated at the Brussels World's Fair. In 1959, IBM's CEO, Thomas Watson Jr., exhibited it in Moscow, which led to a visit by Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev to IBM's San Jose facility, to a building in a city that most Americans still thought of, to the extent they thought of it at all, as a place that grew prunes. More than 1,000 RAMAC systems were built before production ended in 1961. Every hard drive in every computer, phone, and data center on Earth descends from what Reynold Johnson's team built at 99 Notre Dame Street, in a lab surrounded by the scent of ripening fruit. IBM grew. The lab moved to a sprawling new campus on Cottle Road in South San Jose, designed by the architect John Bowles, with award-winning modernist buildings, a reflecting pool, and towering sculptures by the artist Robert Howard. IBM became one of the two largest employers in the city, and it was here, in the specific act of building that campus, that the next chapter of San Jose's story began. Because IBM wanted to build on unincorporated land south of the city limits, and the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors was blocking the permits. A newly appointed city manager saw an opportunity. Anthony P. Hamann, everyone called him Dutch, was 40 years old when the San Jose City Council appointed him city manager on March 10, 1950, by a split vote of 4-3. He had played football at Santa Clara University, served as the university's Alumni Association director, joined the Navy during World War II, and afterward become a division manager for General Motors. He was open, friendly, and utterly driven by a single conviction. San Jose had to get big. But first, San Jose had to stop stinking. The city's sewage system was a relic, a 60-inch sewer line built 70 years earlier, designed for a small town, now overwhelmed by the waste of the canning season. Rotting fruit peelings and liquid waste poured into the South Bay. Trucks hauled additional fruit refuse to Alviso, where it was dumped in small mountains. The decomposition killed every fish in the South Bay and generated clouds of hydrogen sulfide gas so thick that on certain nights the wind carried the stench across town and turned white, lead-painted buildings gray or black overnight. Hamann's first project was to pass a bond measure for a modern sewage treatment plant. The voters, who had been rejecting infrastructure bonds for years, finally said yes. The plant was built near Alviso, and it gave Hamann two things: credibility and a machine for growth. Because once you had a sewage plant, you could extend sewer lines, and where the sewer lines went, the developers followed. Hamann had grown up watching Orange County, south of Los Angeles, develop into a patchwork of competing mid-sized cities with no single dominant force. He considered this a disaster. He believed that one large city could manage growth better than a dozen small ones, and he was going to make San Jose that city. They say San Jose is going to become another Los Angeles, he told his critics. Believe me, I'm going to do everything in my power to make that come true. His method was annexation, specifically strip annexation, a technique so aggressive that his own staff became known, without apparent irony, as Dutch's Panzer Division. Here is how it worked. Hamann would identify where a major shopping center or commercial development was likely to be built, say at a busy intersection out in the unincorporated farmland. Before anyone else could act, he would have San Jose annex a narrow strip of land along the road leading to that intersection. Sometimes the strip was only one side of the street. Sometimes it was a tentacle of territory stretching miles from the city core, snaking across the valley like a finger reaching for a coin. Once San Jose controlled the road, no neighboring city could reach the commercial site, and the sales tax revenue, the lifeblood of California municipal finance, would flow to San Jose. When IBM needed that Cottle Road campus approved, Hamann simply had San Jose annex the site and pushed the project through the council. Problem solved. When the tiny community of Alviso tried to annex the new sewage treatment plant that San Jose was building to capture its tax revenue, Hamann had San Jose annex Alviso instead. Entire neighborhoods, Cambrian Park, Berryessa, Evergreen, were absorbed. Sewer lines were planned not by engineers studying population projections, but by city staff sticking pins in a map wherever a developer made an inquiry. When enough pins clustered together, a sewer line was built. You don't build a city by staying in a vacuum, Hamann said. You build, you sell, and I was the gun for hire. The San Jose Chamber of Commerce, under Hamann's prodding, spent nearly $1 million to attract new industries to the city, and the results were, in a purely numerical sense, staggering. Before Hamann, in more than 100 years of San Jose's existence as an American city, there had been 42 annexations. During his 19 years, there were 1,377. The city went from 17 square miles to 137 square miles. The population went from 95,000 to nearly 500,000. At certain points in the 1950s, 4,000 people a month were moving into Santa Clara County. San Jose doubled its population in 10 years, then more than doubled it again in the next 10. By 1960, it had jumped from the 57th largest city in America to the 57th, to the 57th it had already vaulted past Akron, Dayton, and dozens of others. By 1970, it was the 31st largest city in the country, with 446,000 people. In 1950, San Jose had successfully resisted being included in the San Francisco-Oakland Metropolitan Statistical Area. It wanted to be counted on its own, not as a suburb. That insistence on autonomy would prove prescient. San Jose, the sleepy farm town, was becoming a metropolis, or at least something shaped like one. And the orchards were disappearing. In 1940, 101,000 acres of the Santa Clara Valley had been devoted to orchards. By 1956, new industrial wages equaled cannery wages for the first time, and the math of the valley shifted. An acre of prune trees might earn a farmer a modest return year after year. But that same acre, sold to a developer, could fetch $7,000. By the 1970s, the price hit $18,000 an acre. Local historian Yvonne Jacobson estimates that 77,000 acres of the valley floor left agricultural production between 1950 and 1980. The largest fruit-producing region in the world was being paved for subdivisions. It happened fast enough that people living through it could measure it with their own senses. One year, you could stand on a particular hill and see nothing but blossoms to the horizon. 5 years later, the blossoms ended at a row of tract houses. 10 years later, the hill itself had been graded for a shopping center. The retired orchardist who had picked prunes at the age of 6 now lived in a neighborhood where no one had ever tasted a fresh apricot off a tree. The Valley of Heart's Delight was becoming something else, something that didn't yet have a name. What it had instead was a problem. San Jose was enormous but hollow. The sprawl had no center. Downtown retail had been dying since the mid-1950s, when the City Council reversed its policy of opposing large-scale commercial development outside the core. Valley Fair Mall opened in 1956, a few miles west of downtown, and Macy's was the anchor. One by one, the downtown merchants followed the money to the suburbs. Shopping centers, Town and Country, East Ridge, Valco Fashion Park, bloomed on cheap orchard land. Every new neighborhood had a small strip mall with a supermarket and a dozen stores. Over the course of about 15 years, starting in 1956, retailers led an exodus from downtown San Jose, from which the center of the city has never fully recovered. Then came urban renewal, and it finished the job. In 1958, San Jose relocated City Hall from downtown to a civic center complex at First and Heading Streets, pulling thousands of government workers, and the foot traffic, the lunch crowds, the daily commerce they sustained, out of the historic core. In 1960, the City Council declared a neighborhood near downtown blighted and adopted a redevelopment plan. 224 houses, apartment buildings, and retail stores, many of them occupied by second- and third-generation Italian and Mexican families, were razed and replaced with office towers. The old buildings included Italianate homes from the 1860s, Queen Anne Victorians from the 1890s, craftsman bungalows from the early 20th century. Freeways cut through what remained. The construction of Highway 280 and other routes destroyed hundreds more homes and businesses. In 1966, the neoclassical Science Hall of the College of Notre Dame, a building that had stood for decades at the corner of North Almaden and St. John, was demolished so the city could extend Almaden Boulevard northward. Whole blocks of historic structures were cleared. By the 1970s, the Hotel De Anza, That Art Deco monument, built with the pooled money of 200 citizens, had become run down and was nearly demolished itself. Downtown San Jose was parking lots and boarded-up storefronts. And the irony of it was inescapable. The city had grown into one of the largest in California by destroying both the orchards that gave it beauty and the downtown that gave it identity. Hamann resigned in 1969, forced out by an anti-growth majority on the city council. He returned to Santa Clara University as vice president of development. 8 years later, on March 27, 1977, he and his wife Frances boarded Pan Am Flight 1736 in the Canary Islands. The plane collided with another Boeing 747 on the runway at Tenerife. It was the deadliest aviation disaster in history. 583 people died, including the man who had reshaped San Jose more than anyone since José Joaquín Moraga. The city Dutch Hamann left behind was large but unfinished. Norman Mineta, who became mayor in 1971, and Janet Gray Hayes, who succeeded him in 1975 as the first female mayor of a major American city, both championed growth controls. An urban growth boundary was established. Development fees were imposed. Campbell and Cupertino incorporated to wall themselves off from San Jose's grasp. But the growth didn't stop. It redirected. And something was happening in the valley that nobody had fully anticipated. In 1971, a journalist named Don Heffler published a series of articles in a trade newspaper titled Silicon Valley, USA, referring to the silicon used in semiconductor chips and the Santa Clara Valley, where the companies clustered. The name stuck. The semiconductor industry had been gathering around Stanford University and the corridor from Palo Alto down through Mountain View, Sunnyvale, and Santa Clara since the late 1950s. Engineers moved between companies with unusual frequency, carrying ideas and practices with them. Stock options tied technical workers to company growth. The pace of chip development rewarded risk, speed, and specialization. By the 1970s, the apricot and prune groves along that corridor had given way to low-slung office parks and clean rooms where engineers fabricated silicon wafers. The Santa Clara Valley, the Valley of Heart's Delight, had become Silicon Valley. The companies that defined the new era, Fairchild Semiconductor, Intel, Hewlett-Packard, Apple, were mostly in the cities to the north of San Jose, closer to Stanford. But San Jose, by sheer size and geographic position, sat at the bottom of the funnel, collecting the workers, the housing, the traffic, and eventually the identity. It was the bedroom, the back office, the place where the people who built Silicon Valley actually lived. Not glamorous, but necessary and enormous. In 1982, Tom McEnery, a lifelong San Jose native whose father had been chairman of the California Democratic Party, ran for mayor on a platform of rebuilding downtown. He won. Over his 2 terms, from 1983 to 1991, McEnery pushed through a series of projects designed to give San Jose what it had never had, a center. The San Jose Redevelopment Agency, which controlled significant property tax revenues from the annexation era, poured money into downtown. A convention center was built and later named for McEnery. The agency reached an agreement with the Swig family and a local developer named Kimball Small to construct a Fairmont Hotel, a full-service luxury high-rise on the Plaza de Cesar Chavez. The site the Fairmont would occupy is one of those coincidences that a novelist would be accused of inventing. It was the approximate location of that 2-story adobe building where California's first legislature had convened in December 1849. It was also the site of San Jose's first Chinese enclave, the Market Street Chinatown, which had existed from 1866 until it was destroyed by arson in 1887. Construction of the hotel required a hasty salvage excavation of artifacts from that Chinatown. The Fairmont opened on October 5, 1987, designed by Helmuth, Obata, and Kassebaum. 22 stories, 500 rooms, total construction cost of $140 million, of which the Redevelopment Agency provided $38 million in taxpayer subsidies. It was the first luxury hotel in the Silicon Valley. When it opened, people laughed. Downtown was still half boarded up, still surrounded by parking lots, still lacking the critical mass of residents, restaurants, and street life that make a downtown function. Light rail construction was tearing up the neighborhood. You couldn't get anywhere. Unlike other American cities, San Jose's downtown had no adjacent high-density neighborhoods with thousands of nearby residents to come spend money. Until 1957, only 10% of annual construction in the city had been multifamily housing. Everything else was single-family suburban. A convention center and a luxury hotel do not by themselves make a city center. They make a bet, a very expensive bet, that the center will come. In 1988, McHenry adopted a new motto for San Jose, Capital of Silicon Valley. It was audacious. The tech industry's spiritual home was still Palo Alto, still the strip of cities along the peninsula. San Jose was the big, unglamorous thing at the bottom. But the motto was staking a claim, and the numbers backed it up. By 1990, the census confirmed what San Jose had been chasing for decades. Its population had surpassed San Francisco's. The farm town that couldn't keep its legislature was now the most populous city in Northern California. Think about what had happened in 40 years. In 1950, San Jose was 95,000 people in 17 square miles, picking fruit in the shadow of a 10-story Art Deco hotel. By 1990, it was 782,000 people in 170 square miles, calling itself the capital of the most consequential technology economy in the world. That kind of growth doesn't happen by organic evolution. It happens because one man decided it would happen, and because the financial incentives, sales tax revenue from annexed land, property values that climbed as orchards were subdivided, federal highway funding that made sprawl practical, all pointed in the same direction. The Valley of Heart's Delight didn't decline, it was consumed, acre by acre, by a city that needed to eat land to survive. The dot-com boom of the late 1990s brought the final wave. San Jose's population pushed past 890,000. Property values soared. The city had more hotel rooms, more convention space, more professional sports venues. It landed an NHL franchise, the San Jose Sharks, in 1991, playing in a new arena built near the convention center. By the early 2000s, the San Jose metropolitan area was California's fastest-growing metropolitan economy. The city was spending billions through its redevelopment agency on downtown housing, streetscape improvements, museums, and performing arts centers. Adobe Systems built its headquarters downtown. The Tech Museum of Innovation opened. There was, finally, something to see. And yet the old complaint never quite went away. San Jose was the biggest city in the Bay Area, and it still felt like a suburb that had eaten all its neighbors. The skyline was modest. The downtown, despite decades of investment, occupied a fraction of the space that downtowns occupy in comparable cities. The architecture was broadly criticized. Block after block of structures built during the annexation and urban renewal eras, when cost and speed mattered more than aesthetics. The Fairmont, for all its ambition, struggled financially for most of its first decade. At its low point in 1991, the hotel's assessed value had fallen to $61.5 million, suggesting devastating losses on the original $140 million investment. It eventually stabilized, changed hands several times, and in 2021, amid the pandemic, filed for bankruptcy. It reopened under Hilton management, rebranded. The South Tower was converted into student housing for San Jose State University. The first luxury hotel in Silicon Valley, the building that was supposed to announce San Jose's arrival as a real city, became, in part, a dormitory. There is something almost too perfect about the ironies San Jose has accumulated. The first settlement became the most anonymous big city. The first capital lost the capital. The most beautiful agricultural valley in the world was paved for tract housing and strip malls. The hard disk drive, the technology that made modern computing possible, was invented at 99 Notre Dame Street in a lab rented by a company that chose San Jose partly because the land was cheap and the orchards were pretty. That lab is gone. A historical marker sits near the spot. IBM's later campus on Cottle Road, where the disk drive was refined and manufactured in those award-winning modernist buildings with the reflecting pool and the sculptures. That campus was closed. The buildings were demolished or abandoned. The land was sold. Part of it became a Lowe's home improvement store. The Lowe's has a punch card design on its exterior as a nod to the site's history. Across the street, a park was built. It is called Raymack Park. There is no informational sign. The reflecting pool from Building 025 sits in ruins next to the park, overgrown. The sculptures are gone. That park, Raymack Park, may be the most emblematic place in San Jose. It is a perfectly ordinary suburban park with a basketball court, a tennis court, a playground, and a baseball diamond. It is named after a 70-year-old piece of computer technology that changed the world, and nothing about the park tells you this. It is a place where something extraordinary happened and where no trace of that something remains. You could live next to it for years and never know. This is the paradox that Dutch Hamann built. He wanted San Jose to become another Los Angeles, and in a sense he succeeded. A vast, sprawling, car-dependent city that functions brilliantly as an economic engine, and poorly as a place you can picture with your eyes closed. He gave it size without giving it shape. He gave it population without giving it density. He turned orchards into revenue, and revenue into sewers, and sewers into more annexations, and the whole machine fed itself until it consumed the valley. The blossoms that once drew 20,000 visitors a year to the Blossom Festival, the white and pink drifts that covered the valley floor like snow, those blossoms are gone. A few ornamental trees survive in parking lots and backyard gardens. Andy's Orchard, one of the last working fruit farms in the valley, still grows apricots and cherries on a diminishing patch of land near Morgan Hill, surrounded by housing developments selling homes at over $1 million each. The farmer who runs it knows the days are numbered. The San Jose Redevelopment Agency, which had funded so much of the city's downtown revival, was dissolved in 2012 when the state of California eliminated all redevelopment agencies statewide. Google announced plans in 2017 to build a massive mixed-use campus near downtown San Jose's Diridon Station, a project that, if completed, would bring tens of thousands of workers to the city center and potentially do what 40 years of convention centers and luxury hotels could not. The project, called Downtown West, has moved slowly. The Hotel De Anza, the one that 200 citizens paid for in 1931, nearly died in the 1970s, but was saved by the Redevelopment Agency and restored in 1990 at a cost 20 times its original construction price. The renovation was done by Barry Swenson, grandson of the original builder, Carl Swenson. The neon sign still glows on the rooftop. The diving diva is still on the wall. The lobby still has the wrought iron chandelier and the Spanish colonial revival fireplace with the canopy that reaches to the ceiling. In a city that demolished most of its past, the Hotel De Anza is one of the few threads connecting the San Jose of the orchards to the San Jose of the servers and the code. In the spring, if you drive south from San Jose toward Morgan Hill, past the Raymack Park and the Lowe's and the ruins of IBM's reflecting pool, past the subdivisions that blanket what were once prune orchards, you can still find a few remaining trees in bloom. The blossoms are scattered now, a small grove here, a backyard tree there, pale against the concrete. Most people driving past don't notice them. They are the last physical trace of an economy and a landscape that for more than a century defined this place. The Valley of Heart's Delight. 100,000 acres of blossoms, a perfume so sweet it scented entire towns. Today, the land under those blossoms is worth $1 million an acre. The blossoms don't pay rent,